Good afternoon. Today I have with me Gabriela Salinas. Gabriela she's an international expert in management and brand valuation. And presently she's the global managing director to the Brand Finance Institute. She's also associate professor of strategic brand management in the University of Navarra and associate professor of IE Business School. Well, she was in Deloitte for no more than 10 years as senior manager of the global brand strategy, also as managing director of Brand Finance UK, senior consultant, has worked with Bank of America, Repsol, Telefonica, I don't know, Johnson & Johnson, Roca, just to mention some. Gabriela has a BSc in Business Administration from Austral University of Buenos Aires and a Master in Corporate Finance from CIMA University, also from Buenos Aires. She has written some books, as far as I know, the International Brand Valuation and the Valoración de Marcas, if I remember well. Well, Gabriel, it's a pleasure to have you here, to have the opportunity of talking to you again after so long on a subject I think we both love, branding and brand management. So thank you again.
And thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here and talking with you.
Okay, thank you. Well, Gabi, if I can call you so, can you tell me as a bit of your daily professional commitments? Well, I don't want to know what's your personal life, but I mean, what would be a typical business day for you at the Institute? And in link with really, what does the Institute do? What are the main activities of the Institute?
Yes, great. So as you know, Brand Finance is the leading independent brand valuation and strategy consultancy in the world. We are 25 years old, and because the product that we offer and the area in which we work is essential, but is, I would say, quite complex. You need to have a wealth of knowledge on not only marketing, but also finance and trends. So usually when we deliver projects, our clients ask us for training. And given that we were doing so much training, we decided to structure that offer and go in mass with the offer. So we established formally the Brand Finance Institute in 2019. And we were with big clients, in all over the world, from the UK to Latin America to the Middle East, training clients in this division of Brand Finance, which is education division, on different aspects of brand strategy, brand valuation, positioning, and we do it through different types of platforms, either in events and thought leadership, or through customized courses, more traditional in-house courses, and also through massive online learning courses, which they have been quite important during the pandemic.
Okay, so you have also courses online, I believe, no?
Yes, exactly. So online courses that allow you to pick and choose what you want to get trained on quite easily and in the comfort of any place where you are.
Okay. With your experience, do you see that companies, mainly SMEs, started to understand the real importance of branding and therefore the added value that they may get from it? Because I have an idea that for years, we've been talking about marketing for a long time, but for some companies, branding seems to be something new, at least for some companies. Something new or something more linked with a logo or something like that. What's your feeling on this?
Well, I think more and more in general, all over the world, organizations and startups included are understanding the importance, and SMEs, the importance of branding. In particular, I would say, if we're talking about new companies, with decent size but big ambitions, startups are, the ones that probably understand a lot the importance of, the narrative, the image, how you present yourself in the market, but more and more like what we would call traditional SMEs, not necessarily technological, SMEs, understand the importance of branding. I think in the where we're living, in a world that is absolutely digitized, with no frontiers, and where people are more and more, leaning towards, online offers, is essential. And smaller size organizations understand this, and they're definitely, stepping up in their games in terms of, their brand strategy, visual identity, and how they package their offer to the market.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because I really, at least in Portugal, okay, we have changed a lot in the last years. Okay, there are lots of new startups that have that feeling of they need a brand of new entrepreneurship. But the most traditional businesses, which by the end of the day are still the ones that drive more value to the economy. There are lots of small entrepreneurs, but old entrepreneurs, so to speak, that don't really, traditional entrepreneurs that don't really understand yet the importance of a brand. Okay, they still think, okay, that's something for the marketers, so to speak, and that's not our real business to have a brand. But as I was saying, by the end of the day, we continue to sell a lot for big brands. Hence, so the value added is not so high as it should be. So that's a bit of a feeling. Perhaps in Spain, it's and all over the world, it's a bit different. Okay, brands have been investing all along the years in attracting customers, namely with loyalty schemes and trying to develop a long-term relationship. At the same time, customers seem to be every time less loyal. I was talking last week with a president of an American company, a beer company, and he told me that for us, that's not loyalty the main problem. For us, loyalty, so our strategy is permanent recruitment, because we have to permanently recruit our customers and permanently recruit the new customers. Or in a way, permanent recruitment to our customers is a way of trying to make them loyal. But okay, what do you think brands should do to regain customer trust and preference, or loyalty is a thing from the past?
Well, no, I think loyalty is essential, right? Attracting new clients is essential, and you're always going to have churn. But loyalty is one of the key attributes of a strong brand. Not only to attract new clients, but also to make your clients loyal, and actually reduce the number of detractors. And I think a lot of companies don't take care. There are two or three things that I think some brands are not getting. One is the importance of the experience, and delivering what you promise. And we've seen many times, a lot of big organizations that in different aspects, they promise a great service and they don't deliver. I can think of a lot of examples which I'm not going to mention, but everyone is going to relate in the airline sector, how you get treated versus what they promise. Even if you're a loyal flyer and you have a card, so the card is not important if you don't get treated according to with respect sometimes, and then in many other, I think, service companies, the experience also is not up to the promise. And I can think of professional services firms, and sometimes I think this happens, especially in service firms, because not only they don't take care of the experience per se. Maybe there are a lot of decks about the user experience and the client and the customer experience, but they don't take care of their employees. And that is quite telling in a service organization. So you may have a lot of rules and policies, and you can train people on how to treat clients, but if you don't really code your culture, based in your values, policies on their own ain't gonna work everywhere or all the time. And I think you need to take care of the culture, and that is what fails many times. And so I think a lot of companies are, and brands are focusing a lot on purely the external experience and not in the internal experience, not in creating that cohesive culture that, is the only way in which you can be compliant with your values in reality and delivering that promise. Peter Drucker used to say culture, it's a strategy for breakfast. And I think it's exactly what happens. You can have a lot of nice decks about your vision, your purpose and your values and, how people need to behave. But if you don't really, first set the example from above, with the CEO, have a reward system that actually rewards, the right set of behaviors, but also, and I talk about this many times nowadays, we're in a particular context, we feel really anxious, we don't feel secure anywhere in the world. We have threats all over. Even before the pandemic, the world has become quite, not a welcoming place, I would say. And, the role of a leader is making people feel safe, before anything else. And I think many times, unfortunately, many organizations have become a place in which people don't feel safe, and they're scared to act, and they're scared to do what is best sometimes for the client, because they're scared to get fired. They are scared that they may be stepping outside the norm, and in those instances is when you're unable to really deliver the experience that you have designed. So let me give you an example. Remember what happened with United Airlines? I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. The plane was overbooked, and one doctor that was 69 years old was dragged out of the plane. His nose was broken, and it was filmed on a mobile phone. And that was an utter disaster, like a PR disaster for United Airlines, and everyone was commenting on such an incident in social media. And I think it's a perfect example. Of course, that wasn't the right way of proceeding, but the CEO, after a few hours, came out and commented, that those employees acted according to the protocol. And that makes you think, they acted maybe according to, a protocol, but how scared those people were not to think what it was best to do, and, how they should have conducted themselves in that, situation. So I think sometimes when you don't code the culture according to particular values and the outcome that you want to really get, you may face, those kinds of situations, which then the behaviors of people go exactly against, even following the rules of the outcome that you want to achieve, right? So I think, that inconsistency of the external experience many times is rooted in how strong or weak your internal brand is, how employees, feel and act, every day. And also many times, brands, I think now, are very focused on the external messages and being aligned with certain social mandates, and they make sure that they have the right posts, the right messages, the right declarations and statements. But many times experience is completely different from all that PR kind of like pink washing, greenwashing, you name it, right? And so I think people are able to identify, those inconsistencies, and that detracts a lot of credibility from the brand, right? And trust in the brand.
Yes, linking with this, I'm talking also about experience. I just saw a global research made by Bain & Company when they talked to, say, an overall group of CMOs and marketing managers. And so they 80% of them said that they create great experience to their customers. And then also on this study, they talk to their customers, and only 8% of them told they have had good experiences. So there is really a paradox gap
exactly
between what marketers think, or marketers and leaders think that customers think or that customers want, and what really do customers want and appreciate. Because okay, we have been talking a lot of experience, but I believe that some companies, I'm not here to judge companies, but I believe that some companies think that, okay, they do everything what they used to do, and plus an event or plus something that they call an experience, and don't really think that the experience is a global perception from the customer to the brand, as far as I know. But,
exactly. Every touch point, I think every action, you know, every statement is an opportunity to build or destroy your brand. And the experience couldn't be just, you know, reduced to the concept of, you know, a particular event or an online experience, but, you know, it's every action.
And also having this in mind and taking into account the importance of building brand equity, do you feel there has been some impact as far as your experience is concerned, talking to your customers in the C-suite? Do you feel that the top level is really committed to that or not?
Well, I think more and more, you know, there are more CEOs that are showing that they are committed. I think since Steve Jobs, that was, you know, obsessed with design, and you know, I remember an anecdote in which apparently Steve Jobs called the chief of design of Google to tell him that the gradient of yellow of one of the bows of Google wasn't the right one, right? So his obsession, you know, with you know, the visual identity and brand. So a lot of CEOs, I think, now are very worried about brand understood in a broad sense, like reputation, right? There's not a single day in which, you know, I don't hear reputation being discussed at the board. I think there is more awareness about the importance of reputation as a source of value, you know, and for the organization and a level of value. So they are very worried about it. And I think they are concerned, I would say. They focus on it, and they, you know, are aware not only of the importance of reputation as, you know, a source of value creation, but also they are very aware of the fragility of reputation and you know, how they need to protect it, right? And they are more and more worried about, you know, reputational risk management and you know, how to ensure that you know, they take care of their most valuable asset.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call it, because I'm doing it, I don't call it a stupid question, but talking about say brand valuation models, there are a lot of them, so made by academics, say marketers, people from the finance consultants. But just to mention what kind of models do you think are most appropriate for desired purpose?
Yeah, and so there are a lot of models, and these, you know, there are proprietary models. These, you know, back in the day when I reviewed and analyzed and critiqued all of them, there were like almost 50 proprietary models, but we can group all of those models in 3 big groups. You know, cost approach, which is, you know, how much did it cost to develop this brand, but that is not appropriate to value a brand, because, you know, the amount of money that you put into the development of or creation of a brand is not necessarily related with the revenues that that brand will generate in the future. And there is a second group of methodologies, and that we call the market approach, which basically values the brand by reference to prices at which similar brands have been exchanged in the market. But the problem with that approach is that you don't have a liquid market for brands, you know, and there you may not have that many comparable transactions that, you know, you can source your numbers from. So we usually value brands with the income approach, which means that we look at the revenues and the profit that the brand is going to generate in the future, and the risk that is associated to that stream of profits. Well, is known in the corporate finance arena as DCF approach, right? Discounted cash flow approach. And within this approach, there are many methodologies. You know that there are competing consulting firms that do brand valuation. But I recommend that you choose a methodology based on the type of application, your purpose. So if you are a finance director, CFO, the CEO of a company that have just acquired another group, another firm, and you need to do a purchase price allocation, a PPA, which is an accounting application, I always recommend that you use methodologies that are widely accepted by the accounting profession. That would be royalty relief or multi-period excess earnings. And if you want to do evaluation because as a brand manager, you want to track the levels of value creation, you want to understand how different initiatives that you're undertaking are impacting your brand value, and justify budget allocation or brand architecture rationalization. Basically, you can choose any model that you want, but I also recommend models that you can justify in front of your CFO and your board. Usually, the members of the board, the CFO, are very strong and rigorous in terms of finance models and concepts. So probably a model like royalty relief or multi-period excess earnings, also income split, could be the right methodologies in terms of generating internal credibility and buy-in, for your model and your project. But you have more degrees of freedom in that case.
Yeah, sure. Great. We know that there has been an increasing number of media solutions and instruments, digital, non-digital. So at the same time, with this proliferation of means, we have each time more fragmented audience, which may be a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on how you manage it. But in this process of rapid change, senior marketers still continue to declare, I've seen some research on that they are a bit lost, having difficulty in deciding the best communication plans for their brands. What's your feeling? How can brands successfully reach their targets in this environment?
I think it goes without saying that we are migrating more and more to consuming a lot of content online. That was particularly acute during the worst parts of the pandemic. With the lockdown, there was no other way of consuming. But I would say that when we come back to a more normal kind of lifestyle, and we have more degrees of freedom to move around, multi-channel, is an integrated communication is probably the best strategy in general. But because you can never give like a general advice, I think the best way of optimizing your communications budget is to understand what your clients actually do through research, right? And how they what is the customer journey, how they get recommendations, how they arrive to your website, where do they go. And I think more and more, I think the convergence between in that sense technology and marketing is more and more evident, right? So you need to sophisticate your data analysis, how you track your clients with different platforms, understanding where they consume the information, and in general the customer journey, to understand how to optimize your communications budget. But I would say, we can't forget about TV being the king or the queen, and now we need to think more multi channel, multi-platform.
Yeah, sure. No, it's almost impossible to talk to someone nowadays without talking about the pandemic. How do you think this will impact consumers' brand preferences and loyalty?
I think loyalty probably has been hit during the pandemic, given particular actions of certain companies. So for example, I think, so more broadly, I think the mandate for organizations have changed during the pandemic. So there were several studies from Edelman that showed that a huge percentage, of the population was asking different stuff from the big corporations. So for example, they were asking or they were expecting big corporations to protect employment during the pandemic and put people over profits. They were expecting big corporations to step in when governments weren't able to buy PPE, when they weren't able to buy vaccines or deploy certain logistic plans. They were asking big organizations to step in. So for example, here in Spain, we had an amazing example with Inditex. So Inditex that was hit during the pandemic like any other fashion group, and actually was the only quarter, I think, in the history in which they reported losses, right? They promised to keep all their employees' positions. They didn't fire people due to the pandemic. They didn't put people on furlough, and they assume all those losses. And I think people were absolutely amazed with those reactions. And the same with smaller firms. You asked me at the beginning about the importance that smaller firms put on branding. And I think they are increasingly realizing about the importance of building a strong reputation. And there was a smaller firm here called Chocolates Valor, much smaller than Inditex, right? And they promised to keep, all those jobs. So I think people notice that. And for example, now every time I have to buy chocolate, I buy Chocolates Valor because I really respect and admire, how they walk their talk. And I think in that sense, probably all those values and behaviors that are more related to sustainability understood in broad sense, being ethic, being fair, are going to gain importance, and because of the pandemic, and are going to sustain importance after the pandemic. It's a very personal opinion. I have seen studies here and there. There's no comprehensive study proving this, but because of what I read from Edelman, what I read on our own data in brand finance in my work with clients, I think probably these levels of behaving in a transparent, fair, ethical way are going to gain importance in driving loyalty and also driving preference.
Okay. Well, for us, I mean, the ones that are in the brand management and branding area, we generally we assume that the values of the brand must be, I would say, the basis of the business model. All the organization and all the relationship with customers must be, I would say, framed or based in the values of the brand and the purpose of the brand. But anyhow, I have the feeling, and it's a feeling, that at the end of the day, it is not quite well placed at the place it should be. Branding as a discipline, as an area of importance, as an area of value to customers and to companies. Do you agree? Do you think it's true or not?
So could you rephrase
I was thinking that even at the university level, branding is not placed, so to speak, at the same level as of marketing. It's like something that derives from marketing, and some people study it, others don't do it. Others even have a management course, and perhaps they have a course on branding, and others didn't have. Taking into account the importance of the brand to the corporate value and to customers, do you believe it's so, or no?
Well, I believe that was what we're missing sometimes in at the university or business school level. Is definitely a reputation specific, brand specific subject that dives into all the tools that you need, either as a corporate brand manager or a product brand manager, but in particular at corporate level. Given the importance that now reputation has, in particular at the board level. Having said that, a lot of the marketing discipline that I've seen is imparted at university level includes a lot of topics that actually are part of the branding discipline, right? And so from visual identity design to positioning to how to build an employer brand, many of those topics in certain universities which I collaborate are covered, right? But they are not covered in the depth that I think they should be covered. So I think definitely there is a need for more specialized, specific, and in-depth courses on these matters. Definitely, I agree with you with that diagnosis.
Okay. Gabi, I don't want to take too much time from you. Just a last question. In your opinion, what next, so to speak? What are the main challenges for brand building and brand management nowadays and near next future? What are you?
Yeah, I always, every time I get asked this question, because probably, in every interview and in every conversation that, I have with my colleagues that, comes up, I always like to think about what doesn't change. What doesn't change is our challenge as brand managers or, brand consultants, which is to create and to help create brands that are different and relevant. So that is almost immutable. I don't like to talk about immutable things, but actually that is the purpose of any brand, right? So it's more or less unchanged. But what it changes is the sources of differentiation and the sources of relevance. And I think more and more we're seeing how sustainability is a source of both differentiation and relevance, and how before we understood sustainability purely as the green aspect, environmental sustainability, and more now we're seeing how that is moving towards the importance of employee welfare, treatment, not only being fair in that, but also in terms of compliance, and I think also to true in terms of CSR in general and your relationship with society. But it's moving towards social employee and governance more than purely environmental. So that is going to be probably the next big challenge in terms of building differentiation and relevance. But I think one that I think is related with this one, but it's new and is being discussed more and more, my pupils, my friends that are academics, and also, the brand directors and CMOs with whom I work, is what is the role of brands in an environment which is so highly polarized. Many times we have been told brands need to step up, they need to be activists, they need to take part. And I think many brands are now emulating sometimes the vocabulary, the tactics, the tone of politicians, right? Which are dividing us nonstop. And sometimes, I think that is going to be the big next challenge for brands. What is the tone? What is the role, that I need to take in this heavily polarized society? Do I need to contribute to the growing divide, or do I need to contribute to building bridges, between the two parts of society that don't want to talk to each other? And I think many brands have made up their minds. Others, are thinking about what to do. But I think probably that's the next, area that we need to explore and think responsibly about, because I'm not sure that even brands that, say or declare that everything that they're doing and is sometimes, contributing to create debate and sometimes even more conflict is the right path. I don't have an answer. It's just, I think it's a challenge for everyone. In terms of the role of brands, the activism is good, but sometimes it's the tone and, what outcome are you achieving with this, and it's activism, or it's actually sometimes funding particular, activities or initiatives that are going to help certain groups, that you consider marginalized or unfairly treated. And I think it's the tone. I think in moments like the ones we're living, when in a pandemic, in a lot of conflict, political, some even military conflicts that are, as we speak, surrounding us. And I think brands need to contribute to bring all of us back together.
Yeah, I think that's the price of it, because as you were saying, each time more we say brands that turn active positions in the market. Say last year, Nike with Floyd when he was murdered. Well, they made a video or an ad that clearly positioned them, the brand, and say everyone has to be a part of the change. So, in fact, being activist creates some separation, or at least divides the market. But perhaps it will be another way that customers or consumers look at the brands and choose which are the ones that are more in line with what they think. Okay, the consequences that there are some people that don't like or don't agree with the position of the brand. But I think that a bit the future will be like this. I don't know. Okay, Gabi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you. All the best. And
the same. And thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to be with you and share thoughts and this debate. Really enjoyed it. And thank you and Marketing Mania for inviting me and Brand Finance Institute.
I hope to see you one of these days. I don't know where, Buenos Aires, perhaps. I don't know.
Definitely.
Thank you.